I started acting when I was 7, and I worked on this program, the Jack Benny program. Jack Benny was a legendary comedian in America. And one of the other cast members on the Jack Benny program was Mel Blanc, who happened to be the voice of all the characters in the Looney Tunes cartoons. And so I was almost fated to end up on as a cartoon voice person. I'm sort of fascinated by the balance between intent or intention and what happens when you let go of intention. So, for example, when we do these improvisational movies like Spinal Tap, you come into a scene with a certain intention, but then you have to let it go and just do what your intuition or your instinct tells you to do. In the case of these voices, we didn't even see drawings of the characters. When we first were confronted with a new character, it was always just a line in the stage directions describing a one-sentence description of the character, you know. And so, rather than be analytical or intentional about it, I was just took an intuitive leap. Went, you know, just go for it, see what happens. If it's a wrong leap, they'll tell you to change. If they don't, 27 years later. Nothing beats working with the most talented people you can be around. There's nothing better. They make you better. Hopefully you might make them better. But for your own self, I liken it to, this is from playing basketball. You don't learn anything from playing against people who are worse than you. You learn from playing against people who are better than you. And the same thing is true in acting and comedy. Nothing beats being around. I did a terrible movie a couple years ago, but the great reward for it being in it was I was playing the husband of Glenn Close, the character played by Glenn Close, and being in a room, being able to watch this close up, Glenn Close at work, was just like, thank you. You do have to pay me, but you don't have to pay me, because it's being around great talent. Hopefully, you know, you learn and maybe you get better.
Would you say Mr. Burns is one of your favorite voices to do?
I would say of the Simpsons characters, he is the favorite. Yeah, I think most actors prefer evil characters. In comedy, they're funnier. It's funnier to make fun of, more enjoyable to make fun of evil than of good. But for me, it has to be something that gets me about them. That in the case of Richard Nixon, it's more than a little something. It's a severe distaste for the man. Made me want to sort of penetrate him psychologically and figure out what made that happen. It was finding the little physical things that he did, or that I could that would happen as I was playing him, that I found, gee, that really does seem to fit the character. The physical things that sort of are telling you what's going on inside. He's a great example of a fascinating character, because about 80% of his waking energy was spent in suppressing his emotional responses, and the other 20% was of them blurting out unbidden in funny ways. So weird little smiles that would happen at moments that were entirely inappropriate for smiling and things like that. That made him a really fascinating person to try to do, because that, in a way, every little thing you do is a message about character, about who that person, how screwed up that person is, and so that to me, that's nothing that's more interesting than that. You know, if you're going to spend an hour and a half with characters, there has to be some emotional attachment to them and what they do, even if you're making fun of it. It can't be all from the outside. I think the reason that these movies work and other attempts to do improvised movies don't necessarily work as well is that Chris is never eager for the laugh. He just wants you to tell the story of the scene. He knows that with funny people, there'll be plenty of what he needs, but he's never like, you know, thinking, where's the, come on, do a thing, wait a minute. So you're not pushing to score. You're just doing what an actor is supposed to do, which is telling the story of the scene, except...
Quickly though, how much of a storyline do you get given when you're doing one of those? Do they give you...
Every scene is broken down. You know, it's broken down every scene, because it has to be, you know. The crew has to know what to bring and where to go.
Right.
So it's basically, the way I describe it is, it's like reading a conventional film script with all the dialogue redacted by the CIA. It's our job, among other things, to defend the characters, because new writers will come in and, having watched the show, having in some cases grown up with the show, think it's fun to sort of do a new twist on a character. And sometimes those new twists are funny and effective, and sometimes they violate the basic things that you've been told about the character, you and the audience, for 29 and a half years. And we feel that we in the cast and the audience have both become invested in these characters as we've come to know them. So a joke that has Ned Flanders taking the name of Jesus Christ in vain, I will pop up and say, he wouldn't do that. And Julie will do the same about a joke that seems out of character for Marge. So, you know, as new writers come in, we kind of think it's up to us to acclimate them to, you know, we take these, they're comic characters that we take seriously, is the best way to put it, you know. We take them seriously as people. We think that their stories that we've told up to now should be respected going forward. New jokes to be told about them, obviously, but not by saying, oh, well, that never happened, or he's not religious now, just for the sake of this joke, and then he'll go back to being religious again. I mean, if Ned had a real conversion moment, and it was a story about that, that's one thing. Then that's like interesting human drama and comedy. But if he just ignores his deeply felt, fervent Christianity for the sake of a joke and never is mentioned again, we tend to defend the characters against that. Anybody who says they enjoy writing is lying. I enjoy having written. Writing itself is just partly because, now that's true of writing by yourself when you're solitary. I have been in collaborations where it's been almost giddy fun to be, because the ideas just move much faster, and you're making each other laugh, and it's just a very enjoyable experience. That kind of writing is fun. But writing by yourself, no matter whether you're writing, you know, comedy sketches or a movie or anything else, it's just effing hard work. Oh, political correctness. You know, I think there's a real basic point to be made here. Every time an actor plays a part, or actor, male or female, plays a part, they are playing somebody they're not. I think there's a distinction to be made between representation and performance. Representation, as in the television industry, the motion picture industry, should definitely be more inclusive in terms of whom it hires. They hire as writers, producers, directors, because that will affect the kinds of stories that get told. I remember when I was a kid as a child actor, and the fashion in those days was that there weren't a lot of Jewish characters portrayed on screen. So I would be cast very often in the role of an Italian boy, because that's who I looked most like, if not a Jewish boy. So actors are always being asked, for better reasons or worse, to play somebody or something that they're not. That's the name of the profession. That's the essence of the profession. So and especially voice actors are valued for our flexibility and our versatility. So if you apply that rule strictly, we're really out of a job ultimately, because everybody we're playing is somebody we're not. That's sort of the nature of the game. So in that particular sense, I have a problem with it. I think it as I say, I think it conflates the two things, and definitely in terms of representation, there should be a highly inclusive representation in the ranks of the business at large. But I think that has nothing to do with what kind of characters actors play. Music is obviously a totally different language, using a totally different part of the brain to communicate with your fellow players as well as with the audience. And going to that non-verbal place is, if you get good, halfway decent, which I was then, about halfway decent, where you're not always thinking about, what do I do with my fingers now? And you get past that to that point where you're just letting it happen, muscle memory and everything else taking over. It's really a sort of blessed place to be. And I understand why people will abase themselves in all sorts of ways to be able to do that.